Hey everyone, Doug from Convology here. In this Let's Build video, I'm going to tackle a little bit of this 2020 year in review page that Thrive Themes put out. It's really cool because they've used a lot of parallax scrolling. Basically, that means as you scroll, things will move in relation to where you are scrolling on the viewport on the page. So for example, 2020 this year here, these numbers spread out. This little pattern square here of dots spins kind of crazily like that. And then as I scroll down, the word January slides in, things like that. So this is really cool. A lot of effort went into putting this together. And I wanted to put together a little bit of a template for you to show you how this is done using Thrive Architect and no coding at all. It's literally just some clever image placement with some scrolling behaviors. And I wanted to build a couple of these sections. I am not going to build this entire page simply because I think if I show you a couple sections, you'll get more than the general idea, and it'll be more than enough for you to get an idea for creating something like this on your own. And it's really, really dependent on the images used, so you wouldn't get much out of too much out of the template if you were to just take it and insert your own images. But there's a lot to learn here. Some really cool tricks that they've implemented. So again, let's tackle building this and see how we can get some of this done. So let's jump into my demo site here where I've got kind of like a blank page, and we're just going to start building. So only thing that I've done is I've created this blank page and I've populated just a couple of the images. We'll see how far we get without needing to add some more. So one thing I'm going to do is jump back and forth quite a bit as I kind of take a look, build, tweak, take a look, build, tweak, and so on. All right, and again, I always like to remind people that the goal here is not to be pixel perfect exact. That would take hours, but we're just gonna take a rough shot and get close. So a couple things I do when I do these Let's Builds, I like to take a look at the structure of each section. I like to, in my mind, break it down into content blocks or background sections would be more precise. So I think that, for example, this section here is probably one big background section. That might be how I build it. It seems like this might be a fixed background with a color overlay with a little bit of a transparent gradient so that you can get that scrolling over the image effect. So let's build that first. Let's build out our first background section and maybe this green content box. So let's come into here and add our background section, and I at least want this to be screen height. It's probably more. And jumping back here, it's pretty narrow, so we're just going to leave it at the default inherit page width. And to do that, just up to the breadcrumbs, go to the page gear, and you'll see that we are looking at about 1080. I'll leave that there for now. That's a fairly standard size. And then just a reminder, you can go into typography and edit the typography. And I've just made some basic tweaks. I put this at Lotto, thin for the headers, but we're going to do a lot of individual text tweaks. So that's where we'll put that there. All right, first things first, let's add a couple of things. Let's add a background style, an image, and let's drop in, let's see, drop in our background image there just to get us started. A lot of this is going to tweak and move as we progress. Let's put a content box into it, and let's grab the green that they used. I'm going to grab it actually from the font because you'll see in a second. And I'm just using a color pick eyedropper, ColorZilla Chrome extension to do that. So you'll see here this content box is that similar green, but it is a little transparent. So if we jump back in here and paste in our green, which I will save as a global color for us to reuse in the future, I want this actually to be the full color green. So let's edit our global color, make it the full color, and hit apply. And now we can come back and edit, unlink it, and make it a little transparent, maybe 75. And let's go ahead and add in our columns. That's where we're going to put in our 2020. So let's add in an image and pick our first two and layout and position center. And now let's just duplicate the image, swap it out for the 0, duplicate it again. Our next two. So the reason I like to duplicate rather than dropping in new images is simply just to save like a microsecond of time. Each of these I had already centered, and so they just inherited that center alignment rather than new image, pick an image, center. I like to find little ways to save time every way that I can. So a couple things, we want to start these columns as close together as possible. So I'm just going to go to my columns in the breadcrumbs here, and I'm just going to shrink it down. Maybe as small as it'll go without shrinking the actual numbers. So maybe about 570 might be good enough. And then I'm going to align that center. And then you're going to see as we apply parallax, it'll actually spread these numbers out just a little bit. But so far so good. And then let's grab our a year in review, just to put some text below it. And paste that in, make that our H1 centered. And then using the outside in principle, we can just go to our content box. I'm not going to do this on the background section because we'll have more content, but I'll do it on the content box, and I will go to typography and make it white. That's great. And then one trick you can do is to use a Chrome extension called What Font, just to grab your text. It's 60 pixels in size, weight 100. So we just come back in here, we make this 60, and let's edit this to weight 100. Super thin looking font. All right, that looks good. Now, the next thing I want to do is go into these columns again, go to layout and position, and I want to get rid of all of my excess padding and margin. I don't need it there. And unfortunately, I have it on each of my images as well. So I should have done that before duplicating, and you'll see now why it saves a few seconds. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We actually probably want this background content box to be a little darker. So let's go to background style, darken it up just a little. Maybe 80, 85 or so. That's good enough. Okay, so let's start to get to work on some of our parallax. So you'll note that if I go back to my page here and I scroll, they just spread out from each other. So the 2 and the 0 on the left go to the left, and the 2 and the 0 on the right go to the right. So to do that, let's select an image and go to scroll behavior here on the left and choose parallax. And I'm not going to worry about the mobile version in this demo. Typically, you won't do a whole lot of parallax on mobile devices, but we'll just go for some default desktop design for right now, because that's really what this page was designed for. So let's just choose parallax, add new effect. We want a horizontal scroll, not a vertical scroll, and we want it to go left. And you'll notice that it did jump it out significantly to the left. That's something we'll take a look at here in just a little bit. But I do just want to hit apply on that, and I want to apply the same parallax effect to the 0. We'll go horizontal, left. I want to change the speed on this to about 1.5 because I feel like, whether or not this is true, when I scroll, I feel like the outer ones move faster. I don't know. It could be just an illusion. So now we'll just repeat that process for these two on the right. We'll do horizontal scroll 3. I think I have to change that to right. Yep, to right. And then parallax, add new effect, horizontal scroll right. Let's change this one, the 2 to 1.5. There we go. Hit apply. So let's save our work there and then just do a quick preview. You'll see they started apart because we don't have this lower in the viewport. That's something that I'll explain here. If we go back to this effect, you'll see that the viewport start is 0%. So I want to bring this down, which it is, we already know it is already. So if I go to our background section, I want everything centered within it. And then I want to save my work. And you'll see kind of what I mean. See how they're closer together now? But now as I scroll, they'll start to move. So actually, they're kind of moving a little strangely. Let's go back to our 2. Go to our scroll behavior. I accidentally added a vertical scroll. Yes, there we go. Perfect. Save work. Okay, so we need to add a little bit more. Let's just, for the sake of this, add in a couple of background sections. So one trick I like to do is just duplicate several background sections, and then that gives us more room to scroll. And now you can see we have successfully duplicated that parallax effect. Looks quite nice. So now we want to add in, if we jump back here, there's this like, I don't know, dotted, squared looking thing, and it's parallax spins off to the right, which is kind of cool. So let's come back into here and add in an image. And I think I don't know how they did this, but I'm just gonna use it using some positioning here. So if I just drop the image in, you'll see that everything else kind of moves away, or it moves everything else away from it to fit in. But if we go to layout and position, this is when we can use some of our advanced positioning, and we may want to try relative or absolute. I'm going to go with absolute, and I'm going to tell it to go to the top right corner, maybe the bottom right. Yeah, bottom right actually looks a little bit better. And then we need it to be brought in somewhat. So if I go here, I can move it from the right to the left a little bit, possibly right about there. And again, we're not going for perfection. And then let's add that parallax effect here. So let's go parallax and add effect. We want a horizontal scroll effect. We want this to be to the right. Actually, we want it to be a rotate effect, a rotate to the right. Awesome. And then we'll hit done on that. Well, actually, let's see. It actually spins off much faster. So let's come back and change a couple things. Viewport end, let's say the viewport ends at 65% and our speed is 5. And then we'll hit apply on that. And then let's go to our columns here, because I want the 2020 to be on top of that. So I'm going to go to layout and position, advanced, and giving this a z-index of 99. And then we're going to give this text a z-index of 99. Actually, it might just be the image that needs to have the z-index of 99. Let's try that. Yeah, that's what it was. We want to add the z-index to the image. But let's save this and kind of see what we've spun up here. So now as it's just rotating. Okay, so we need to add a rotate and tricky. We need to add a second scroll behavior, a rotate and a horizontal scroll. And to the right, maybe at a 5, hit apply. And then I think I'm going to change this to a 3. Save our work. And cool, look at that. Sort of. We have to change that. I can already tell what I did wrong. We need to come back in here and change our rotate so that it'll rotate the entirety of our viewport. I got that now. And save work. Refresh. Now it spins off the whole way. I don't know, that looks kind of cool. We're going to bring ours up a little bit. They have a little bit more space within their container. So let's go in here, maybe add in 80 on top and bottom. That's probably too much. We'll just make some approximation. And then we'll lay out and position this guy a little bit up. Let's save that and take a look. Hey, it looks pretty good. Good enough, right? So now a couple things we want to do. We want to position our background section so that everything looks good. And we want to grab this gray. So I'm going to do a color pick eyedropper. It's just F2. Let's jump back in here. And let's go into our background section and add a background style. Let's add a color. Maybe a color gradient. And let's have the white be completely transparent and the black be our F2. Hit apply. Actually, let's drag this down significantly. Let's maybe drop it down about there. So now we start to get some of that gray subtle background effect, which I think looks pretty good. So then let's drop in our columns below our content box and go 2 columns, and let's grab their text here. So on the left column, they have that text. On the right column, they have that text. And oops, I keep clicking on that preview. Let's grab this text here. Okay, cool. And almost good. And it says sounds good. Let's bring this text in. Center it like that. Okay, so a couple of things. I want to point out that it looks like they have much more of this gray gradient, and they've also added that background scroll. So on our image here, on the background section, we need to say static background image. Great, and hit apply. And then our linear gradient, we need to get rid of significantly. And over here, that's looking okay. I wonder if that's how they did it. We might play around with this. And that's the neat thing. If you're new to my Let's Builds, one of the things that I really like to do here is show you my thought process, kind of talk out loud and ramble a little bit so that you can see what I do when I approach building a page for the very first time. I have not practiced this. I haven't rehearsed it. I'm literally just jumping in and seeing how far we can get. So one thing I noticed, and just speaking out loud here, this gray is pretty solid. And it's pretty high up on this section. So what I want to do is come back into my background section and go to my linear gradient, and don't bring it down just from the bottom, but bring it up significantly, which is too far at that point. But if I brought it right about there and hit apply, that might be accomplishing a similar effect to what I want. So now in this background section, one thing also, you'll note that their images are higher up and the background, they also have a navigation. So some of this is going to be a little bit of a tweak. But let's do our image and let's position it. Let's default it towards the top. Hit apply. It looks pretty good. Now maybe I'll add in a navigation just so that we can have it. So let's add in a background section above everything else. Oops. Looks good. And nice. Let's narrow this down by going to main options, shrinking it up. Maybe just pick 85 as a good number. And let's add in just a placeholder logo. I don't know, let's find maybe one of my logos. Yeah, that'll do good. So shrink this up just a little. And then oops, go to layout and position. Center it, just to give us something to play with. So then as we come back into this background section, we can say, I want 60 pixels and I want this background section. We're trying to bring the background image a little bit more within the frame. So what I want to do is come in here to the background, and instead of default, I do just want to hit cover again. There we go. That's the effect I wanted. Perfect. Perfect. All right, let's save that and give that a good preview. Come back into ours and hit preview. Cool. That, I think we're already accomplishing quite a bit of what we wanted. And we're starting to look just like the page. Okay, so they use the screen on sounds good. They've given this quite a bit more space. So let's jump into ours and do the same thing. Our columns, let's do layout on position. Let's drop this down, maybe 40. Do the same thing down here. I think their columns might actually have a little bit more room to breathe as well. Maybe something like 60 pixels between the two columns. That's just a total guess. And then let's change that font a little bit there. So now let's go ahead and build this second section. This is our first month in our year in review. This is January. And again, I'm going to build this all within a background section. I think that's a good way to start it off. One thing to note, they do have this little circle here, a little divider piece. If I right click on that and go to the inspect window, and then you scroll down, sometimes you can find out a little bit about like the shadow effect that they're using. Here it is on the right, box shadow. So I'm not really a CSS pro by any means, but what I do when I look at this, I just see it's like 0, 19, 21, and 4. 0, 19, 21, and 4. Something to that effect. So if you click on this shadow, you open the shadow editor, you'll see that it's Y offset 19. So maybe that's distance. Maybe blur is 21, spread 4. So if I come in here, start putting together this section. So here's the background section. Let's actually, there we go. Let's drop into our background section an icon. So let's go to icon and drop that in. And then the icon they used is like this downward triangle arrow, and they keep this like triangle, empty triangle motif going throughout the whole thing. So let's search for triangle, and I am terrible at searching the icon thing. I like never know. Is it a chevron? I never know what terms to search for to find what I'm looking for. Maybe it's an arrow. Yeah, I think it's an arrow because there's the right version. Let's find the downward version. Search through here. I don't know if anyone can commiserate with me on just sometimes how hard it is to use. There it is. There we go. It's called the menu down. Okay, menu down, and then we're going to use menu right in just a little bit. So menu down, let's select that. And we don't want it to be black. We want it to be our green again. Good enough. And let's reduce our size down until it's a little bit respectable there. And let's give it a background style. Let's make it white so that it pops over the section above it. And then we know that it's in a circle. So I can tell you already my icon's way too big still as well. Let's drop this down to like 24. Let's go to borders and corners, and we want to just give it a huge amount of border. And then under layout and position, click the lock so that we can edit all of our padding at the same time. Let's add 30 padding. It might be way too much. Maybe drop it down to 20, not 320, 20. And then let's go to advanced layout and position and go to relative, and let's move the vertical up just a tad. There we go. So now you can see our circle. If I go back to, there we go, it's transparent. I don't want that. You can see it overlays the section above it. Now we want to give it our drop shadow, and that's what we were looking at before. So let's come in here and drop a shadow. Let's jump back to here, and our spread was 4, our blur was 21, and our distance was 19. Spread was 4, 21. That does not look right. So the opacity is probably way too high. And that kind of looks like it a little bit. A little bit. Not too bad, right? So another thing I do is, again, I'm terrible at CSS, so I'm just like you. I'm poking around until I find something that looks right. I'm going to go, let's look at this one again, just to make sure. Yeah, 19, 21, and 4. So my assumption is we just need to really lower the opacity on that. Let's make that maybe like that. Okay. I mean, look, that looks good enough to me. You can see the difference. You can see the shadow. So that looks good. So let's look at the structure again. Let's close our inspector here. We have the same effect. We have 2 columns. We have a bunch of images in our right-hand column that are doing some funky parallax stuff. We have our text here. That's doing a funky parallax effect as well. Interesting. We might want to put that in a content box to get that border on the left. Styled list. Okay. That's nothing too crazy. So let's jump in here and add in our columns. And I can already tell you all the work, if I can get it in here, all the work is going to be the parallax. It's just an enormous amount of work. So huge respect to whoever designed this page. Okay, so let's drop in an image. And we may end up making this a background image. Let's drop in our little blue bean onto the page. It looks like a bean to me, so we'll call it a bean. And let's drop in our text just to give ourselves something to play with. And yeah, I mean, look at the difference here. So we've really got to stretch this section out on our width. Let's come in here to our background section and tell it not to inherit the width from our landing page. And just a reminder here, what that means is if you go to page gear again, you'll remember that we have a 1080 pixel width. Let's go to our background section here though, and not inherit it, and instead say 1400 and close this window. Yeah, 1400 is looking good. So we'll leave that at 1400. Again, you could probably inspect their page and find out what it is, but we'll play with 1400 and kind of go from there. So now we need to add in a couple of things. I want to add in a content box, and then I want to give this a left border of our green color. And then I want to drag in, let's see, I want January and 2020. So we're going to drag in 2 different text elements so that we can have 2 different text effects. And we'll call this one January, and we'll make that an H2 and bold it. Cool. Make that our green. That didn't work because I made the borders and corners green. Let's go to main options and make you green. Same thing. I could do outside in principle. Probably should go to the go to the content box instead, go to typography, and make everything in there green. Now the 2020, let's jump back over here. Let's pull out our what font, and the 2020 is 33, and the January is 48. So this we're going to make 33, and this we're going to make 48. Cool. And we have all this extra line spacing that we're inheriting from our theme or our page typography stylings. So we want to get rid of all that. We really just want to bring all of these in really close together. So one thing sometimes I do is if I'm just working on a particular page, I might cheat a little bit, and instead of editing the text itself, I'll just edit the position there. So that looks good. Content box, let's get rid of all of this excess padding and margin. We don't need it. That's starting to look good. I will come back into my content box though and add back in quite a bit of spacing. Might even be 50 is good. And then let's add in our styled list. Let's drop it above the text, and let's change our icons from check to menu right. Let's try that. Menu, there we go. What did they call that one? Select menu right outlined. Okay. First world problems, can never figure that out. Make these a little bit bigger. That looks cool. I'm gonna layout in position on this. Sometimes you have to adjust these to pull them up a little bit. How do theirs look? We'll see. We'll make this text coming in here again. What font? It's size 22 and its weight is 400, so it's a little bit more bold. Let's go to main options, make these guys 22. 22. Cool. Actually, that looks good. I didn't have to adjust the layout position of my menu items at all. But we'll come in here and we will change these to Lotto or Lato. I don't know how to say that. And hit apply. Cool. So our styled list is now too far away. Again, welcome to Let's Build, where you hear Doug ramble as he figures out how to build. And then we're going to get rid of a little bit of this content box. I added too much. That looks good. Go like 30. We'll call it 40 and call it a day. Okay, good enough. We will just bring in our 2 points here. And just about done. And then we get to get into this cool parallax stuff. Get rid of that extra one we don't need. Cool. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, let's take a look at these images. We have the woman sitting on like this, we call them beanbag chairs here. I don't know what you call them. Futons, with this board, this image here, and then this one. So it looks like this is talking about their Parallax feature that they released and their freelance digital marketing guide. I remember that back in January. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on. It looks like our woman in the futon beanbag chair doesn't move, but these other two items do. This one moves up and this card moves down. So let's add all three in and see what we can play with. So next step, I don't know, maybe I'll make this, gosh, maybe I don't know. What I'm playing with in my mind is whether or not this bean thing is going to be the background image of the column that it's in, or if I'm just going to dump all the images and use positioning, which we'll play with that first. And if it's just beating us over the head, we'll start fresh. So I want to move. I think that decides it for me. I think I'm going to take this image of this bean thing. I think I'm going to make it the background image of this column. So I'm going to go to column, background style, image, and select the bean. There we go. And do contain. I don't know. It's so big anyway. All right. Changed my mind. Sometimes you can't see it until you see it. All right, going back to this. Now let's just take our woman in the beanbag chair and let's go to advanced, First off, let's make her 97. So she goes on top of that. And let's go to relative. And let's increase this up until we like where that's at. And then something to that effect. So if I did that, I jumped over here. Okay, so she's more off to the right and this thing stands there. Okay. So we need to bring her off a little more to the right on our horizontal. Okay. I don't know. Looks good enough to me. Maybe a little more vertical. Okay, cool. Now let's bring in our other two images. Here we're looking for this one. Okay, and then it's going to come in from the top. Let's still do relative positioning and let's bring it down a bit. Ooh, that's going to hurt that section, isn't it? We're going to go with absolute positioning. I don't know, that'll be interesting. I don't know how absolute positioning works with parallax. We're going to learn something together. Let's go to the left and move it a little more up, maybe a little more down, something like that. And then we'll bring in its friend, the other image. And that is our image here. I'm probably breaking all kinds of rules. The designer that built this page, who really built this page, is probably like, what are you doing? Absolute positioning. Oh. So you can already tell I messed that up. Let's move that down just a little bit so I can grab this guy here and bring him up to 99. So I'm giving everybody a z-index right now that allows them to layer on top of each other. I don't know if you noticed this, but our little card here goes below this person, so I need to swap those. Under advanced, he needs to be 97 and she needs to be 99. Cool. That looks good to me. So bring him back over now. Yeah, that's looking good. Now I want to go back to my columns and I want to give a little more gutter width. All right, looking good. So now let's start to play with some parallax. And parallax to me is not an exact science. It's the let's play around until things look good. And I'm gonna, speaking of playing around with things until they look good, I am going to bring her off more to the right. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so we're just going to play with some parallax scrolling until we figure things out. So again, coming back here, he, as we scroll down, moves down. So let's go to scroll behavior, parallax, add an effect, a vertical scroll down, and hit apply. And if I preview it, you'll notice that as I scroll, it does move down. Cool. It's actually much lower though. So at mid-screen, it starts about right there. Okay. Layout and position. Probably want that right about there. And then this one, it starts lower and goes up. So let's start it lower and let's add a scroll effect, parallax, add an effect, vertical scroll up. Oh, look at that. Hit apply. Nice. Hit done. Save work. And preview. There we go. As we scroll down, our effects scroll up. That looks cool. Let's view what theirs does as we scroll down. So that's not exactly how theirs. Oh, that's pretty close though. I mean, our placements are all off, but look, we've accomplished kind of the same effect. So the only difference is on theirs, it actually starts there too. Ours is a few pixels off, but that looks really good. I might just slow him down a little bit so he doesn't need to be, let's make him 1 and hit apply, save, refresh. Yeah, look at that. That's kind of cool. I mean, that worked out. All right, so we've kind of started to accomplish that same effect. Now, if you remember, the January also needs to scroll, so we need a parallax effect and horizontal scroll to the left. Speed is really slow though. Let's move it back to a 1 speed and hit apply and save work. Refresh. As we scroll in, January comes in. Let's look at theirs now. If you're getting dizzy yet, I don't know. Scroll down. January comes in. Ours, January comes in. Oh, but it needs to stop. So this is cool. When does it stop? So we need it to stop scrolling when it reaches, essentially if we hit preview, when it reaches about here is when I want it to stop. So what would we call that? Again, trial and error, the parallax way. Let's try 50%, hit apply. Whoa, that was almost perfect. In fact, the J kind of lines up the 2. I like it. I like it. Gonna hit done, gonna hit save and try it. So as we scroll in, locks in, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Cool. All right. I think we've nailed that section. That looks good to me. Okay, so let's look at the next section that I want to build. And in all reality here, we've built January. If you look at February, it's the same thing. We're getting a parallax effect. We have images stacked on top of images using relative and absolute positioning and parallax scrolling. March is the same thing, just more parallax. Don't get dizzy here as I spam past this. Essentially, you just have parallax. There's the rotating and the left scroll at the same time. We covered that already. So I'm not going to build all of these. I'm just going to show you that they're just repeating that process. So when you build something like this, go ahead and spend a few hours in do that. But I want to build this section here because this section here introduces 2 things. It introduces a right and vertical scroll at the same time, I think. It also introduces that background scroll effect again, and I just think this section would be fun to build. So let's kind of wrap up everything by building our December 2020 end, kind of like fitting, I guess, to make the last thing on the page. So let's jump back into our document here, closing out all my extra. There we go. So let's go to our next background section and let's add in a background image. Let's add in our, I have to drag it in and upload it actually. It's a little streamer effect. Let's insert that. That looks good. Hit apply. If you remember, we actually believe have a static background effect. Let's do contain. That looks good. Now I believe we come over here. We have another content box that we need to apply that same green transparent effect to, and let's drag that in now and build that. Let's go to background style. Let's just give it a color. Let's bring in our friend here, unlink it, and make this 85 again, just I think to keep it consistent with what we had before. Let's bring in our 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. One thing I'm going to do to this background section, I'm going to do what I did to the other one. I'm going to make it, I think we did 1400. Is that right? Yeah, let's go with 1400. But we're going to make our content box smaller. Our content box is not going to be that small. Maybe our content box will be like, I don't know, 1200. Yeah, let's go with 1200 just to kind of get us started here. And let's drag in our images. So we've got our 118. Let's go to layout and position. Get rid of our, center that. Do the same thing. Replace this with our 53. And then replace this with our 8. And insert that. So a couple things. They've oddly changed sizes. You know what? I might have to just nix those 2 like that. I don't know why I did that. Drag them in fresh. See what that does. Yeah, that fixed it. All right. So if you get any weird glitches like that, just add new images. See, did it again. Let's just add it fresh. Not sure why I did that. But let's go to layout and position, do the same thing, kill off the extra margin on both of those, center them, and that looks good. Okay, so then come into our content box. Let's add 60 on all sides. And new features, blog posts, let's just cut and paste. So to accomplish that text effect where the letters were a little more spread out, I am going to paste it in. Actually, let's just type it in, new features. So you can see we're in normal standard case. If I open up my text tool, I can change it to all caps, and we can add some letter spacing to kind of spread it out a little bit, which looks nice. And then we can center it within our container. So coming back here, this is white and it's a little thicker, I think. Let's pull out our what font tool. It is size 15, weight 700, so it is bold. So let's bold it, and text size 15. Cool. And then let's go to the content box, and from the content box, apply the outside in principle for our typography. There we go. So now we can just simply duplicate this, and we'll just duplicate it again. And I don't remember blog posts. I don't know what Toonie courses are, but, and we'll just type in blog posts. And then maybe we'll come back in here and add in too much. Let's just add 10 pixels onto each of these. Cool, that's that section. Now we need to add in a couple of things. So first off, let's add in this text here. 2020 December in total we released. So let's add in some text. 2020, duplicate it. Total we released, and I forgot to duplicate December. So for December, I don't know, let's make December H2, bold it, come back to what font. This is 33, 48, 24. Nix that and that, and probably, I don't know, maybe I'm breaking another cardinal rule by doing it that way, but I think it just looks better. And we did give this one more space, so we can eyeball it and say, yay, that looks good. And these two are our green. In total, we released, this is bold as well. And then on our background section, let's add in 60. Cool. And then I think they have a background color. They have this, let's come in here. It's like a background gray. Might already be on it, but let's go to our background section, background style, add a color, a background gray. We want that to actually be solid, and we need it to be below our image. There we go. That looks good. Okay, time to play with our last little parallax friends here. He's not parallax. We need to add in, or maybe he is. Let's see. I'm going to refresh the page. I thought he had some parallax effects, but it could just be waving goodbye to us. No, he appeared. So let's add in an image of, let's go below the content box. Our friend, section 12, element 1. Great name. So let's do a relative position on him and bring him in vertical. He's kind of like, see you later. Bye. Okay, and then we'll bring him in a little more on the right. No, actually, maybe he was like that. Yeah, he was chilling off to the side. Cool. That works for me. We just need to click on the image itself and go to animation and action, CSS animation, and we need this to be fade in. Yeah, I think that works. And save. And then we need to add in this text, give ourselves a little bit more. and Thrive Themes in 2020. So a couple tricks you can do here. I could put this text in a content box, but we really don't have to add the content box. We could just go to layout and position. And sometimes what I do is I just start dragging this max positioning down until I get it where I like it, which is roughly what they have, and then just center it. Again, that works for me. So let's bold this and make that 2020. Oops. Bold that and make this our green. And then this is probably like 22. Then our friend here needs to be brought back up. Cool. Now the last effect here, we have a book that's flying. Where's it going? It's just going left, and our, let's see, what is that? Upright. Let's play around with that. So let's add in a book image. I don't know, maybe below the content box. This will be an interesting one. Let's add in our book, and so that's interesting. So let's make our content box. Let's give it layout position 95, and let's tell our book to be positioned absolute. Our friend here, section 12, 96. And we need this to scroll with this. So I don't think this was a, we could play around with it. Let's go to scroll behavior and parallax, add an effect, vertical up, add an effect, horizontal right. Yeah, I think that works. Oh, I put the book in the wrong spot. Oh well, let's move that. So hit apply. Let's swap this image with our window. So let's just take an inventory here of what this looks like as it comes in and stops. That's about right. So we just need to layout and position this up. We need it to be absolute. I'm gonna bring it up about here-ish, I guess. Save that and try that out. That looks cool. I can live with that. Now let's do the same thing. Let's add in a new image. Let's add ours above the content box, and let's add in our book. And we will go absolute again on our book, top right, and lower it down to about there. And add in our scroll behavior. And we'll do parallax. We'll come in from the horizontal scroll to the left, apply, add effect, vertical scroll up, apply. And let's save our work and check that out. So he just kind of keeps going off on the right there, but I think I like that. I'm okay with that. All right, that's looking good. Let's come back in here to our background section and let's remove a couple of things. You'll note that our background section here is a little tall. Sometimes this happens when like a particular element is thought to be down below. So it's actually our friend here, element 12. We want to change him to absolute positioning and then just reposition him. And then we'll just move him down. So I had him on relative positioning, which put him down below these elements, which left the extra room. So no relative on him, all absolute positioning, and let's save. So there you have it. That is Gosh, this was a long video of me rambling and kind of positioning things, but there you have it. That's how Thrive probably approached building their year in review template. And if you have any questions about maybe how to do some of these things that you saw me doing here, or how to implement other things with Thrive Architect, maybe some of the things that you saw in this Let's Build, feel free to leave a comment in the video or on convology.com, and I would be happy to help. If you are interested in downloading this template, I am making it available to everybody. Just go ahead and visit convology.com and find the post associated with it. If you're on social media or YouTube, there'll be links in descriptions that you can go ahead and grab it. So again, this was Doug from Convology. It was an awesome 2020. Happy New Year, everybody. There's a lot of really great things coming to Thrive Themes and all of their plugins. And honestly, it's just an awesome time to be using such great tools. So here's to 2021, and I'll see you in the rest of the year.